And no, this is not Tai Chi. It's just a signal to my new camera operator to zoom out. Hey guys, you're probably going to notice a difference in the video quality because I'm actually using OBSBOT to film this video. I'll be swapping between the B-roll and different cameras to compare it, but for the most part I'm intending to actually use OBSBOT to complete this review. So what is OBSBOT exactly? Now imagine taking one of those gimballed cameras like this ENQUIRIES Pocket 2, which I reviewed in this video, and merging it with 1080p webcam, which coincidentally this Logitech C20 is a 1080p camera, and mating it together to achieve OBSBOT Tiny. That's exactly what it is. So in short, this is a webcam that uses 2-axis gimbal to keep this beautiful mug centered in the frame. So take a closer look at the device. It's not your usual form factor for the camera, however, it's not a bad thing. Now, first of all, it can be mounted in 3 different ways. You can just simply put it on a desk if you, well, want people to see your nostrils. Now, if you have a laptop or monitor, there is included stand that simply erects on top of your screen and allows the OBSBOT Tiny to be mounted in a magnetic way. That way, you're kind of gonna have your webcam where the webcam's supposed to be, and you're not going to end up looking unnatural. Third way is the way I'm using it now, which is to put it on a tripod, because it has a 1/4-inch screw at the bottom. Now, apart from the USB Type-C connector, where the data goes, there's also this confusing 5-volt DC jack, which kind of makes me think why, because for the most part, you're probably going to be able to power it from the USB port. I even tried that with a mobile phone, and I was able to operate this camera without any problems, so not 100% sure why they opted out for that external output, especially that this webcam doesn't have a Wi-Fi interface to connect to. Now in front you'll notice obviously the lens that you can, well, touch and force it to move in a position. This is one of the ways you can actually set the camera to privacy mode, and very useful and very helpful LED green bar with 3 LEDs that will notify you what is the camera operating mode or whether your gestures worked. Now, speaking about the gestures, there are 2 supported gestures by OBSBOT Tiny. First is the ability to start and stop tracking by simply raising the hand. As you can see, I've disabled tracking, so right now the camera is not going to follow me. And I noticed that I disabled the tracking because the camera informed me about it by first displaying a blue bar indicating that the gesture is being recognized, and then switching over the light to green 3 LED bar informing me that the tracking is on, or 1 LED bar light, the tracking is disabled. It's very handy and helps you to save the time from double checking if the script settings has been applied. Now that the tracking is on, I can safely tell you about the second function, which is zoom in and out. Now, I know this is not the best way to do it in terms of gestures, but this is what they set out in, and unfortunately that's the gesture we're going to be using for zooming in and out. In order to use your gesture successfully, you have to put your hand next to your head, because the camera will use your head position and associated gesture to switch different modes. Now the face tracking is probably one of the best ones I've seen so far. It's incredibly responsive, with the gimbal having the ability to turn up to 120 degrees within a second. We can easily demonstrate that. So for the most part, it's not going to be a problem, and the associated movement is quite smooth, and I really like it how it works. The face tracking and gesture recognition is actually resolved within the device itself, which means you can connect it to anything you want, and you'll still be able to take advantage of the gesture controls and face tracking without any additional software. However, the OBSBOT Tiny does come with additional software which you can use to pre-configure the camera. It will let you do a couple of interesting things. First, obviously, the firmware update, etc. However, the software will let you set a couple of parameters. So you can, for example, define how much you want the camera to zoom in when you're using the gesture. Additional parameter is the headroom control, meaning how much space over your head you've got when you're using your camera, and you can set that to 3 different modes. And lastly, something worth mentioning, there are also presets that you can apply. So you can set the camera into different positions by using associated virtual kind of button, set the camera to position and record that as a bookmark. Then you can record that by simply hitting the button. It's an interesting concept, however, there is no really API or anything that you can link it to, for example OBS, and trigger it from there. That would be super useful. Let's talk about the video and audio quality. Throughout this video I've been actually using OBS audio as well as the video, so you have a pretty good idea what the video is like and what the audio sounds like. And let's face it here, in regards to audio, it does a really great job. A couple of days ago, I was on a call with another OBSBOT Tiny owner, Peter Scargill, and he usually talks from his man cave, which is quite echoey, and OBSBOT did amazing job at cancelling that echo and just providing me with his voice. So in that regard, OBSBOT is really good. Now the video. The first disappointment is the inability to have the video stream at 60 frames per second. It is 1080p stream, but it's capped at 30 frames. It might be a deal breaker for many of you, however there are some redeeming qualities. The actual sensor of the camera is quite decent, so even though the resolution is capped and the frame rate is capped, the image quality is pretty decent, even in a low lighting conditions. And if you don't believe me, just check out the performance of Logitech C920, a webcam I've been using so far in my live streams. So this is the video and audio from the Logitech camera I've been using so far in my live streams. Obviously I wasn't using the audio from it, I was using just a video feed. But if you want to compare that to my traditional audio setup worth of £400, then I'm going to switch it right now. And if you want to compare that to a £400 audio setup with a Zoom H5 and a Comicam wireless microphone set, then you have a chance right now. So let's switch back to OBSBOT Tiny. So who is it for? Priced at $199, it's not cheap. Even though right now there is a sale on OBSBOT website and it's priced at $169, so that might be slightly more tempting. However, there's a couple of things to consider. If you're a content creator like myself and you use live streams and you don't mind 30 frames per second, then removing the hassle from actually controlling the camera and where it's pointing, it's probably going to be worth it for you, because live stream and the last live stream I was hosting, I've used OBSBOT and it was such a relief that I don't have to focus on the camera itself. I can just focus on what I'm doing and I'm always going to be in the center of the action. It is disappointing that I cannot select the object tracking instead, but it is what it is. Another thing that content creators are going to be impressed with is probably microphone quality. Considering this is a built-in microphone into a camera, it's really good. So how about people who work from home? Now, dropping nearly $200 on a webcam, it's probably not going to be first idea that they have in mind. However, there are a couple of advantages here as well. Now, for everyone that is using the webcam and a microphone just to participate in a company meetings, well, the quality of the camera and the microphone probably is not going to be as important. As long as the other party can understand you, you probably can get away with whatever your laptop is providing you with or your phone. But if your work requires interactions with customers, then first impressions, quality of the conversation, quality of the video and audio definitely matters. And having that professional setup might not be a deal breaker, especially if the employer is happy to foot the bill. After all, the cost of decent 1080p camera will range anywhere from $60 to $100, and a decent microphone will add at least $20 to $30 on top of that, which comes really close to the advertised price of OBS Tiny Bot. Now, there is a third use case that I should probably mention, because I've loaned this camera to my work because they wanted to test it in a conference setting. When it comes to conferences, you've got two options. First, you can invest in widescreen panoramic camera, which is probably about $600 to $700, and make sure the camera sees everyone and then focuses on whoever's talking or whoever has been appointed. And that's an expensive option. OBSBOT Tiny might be a solution to that, thanks to predefined presets and a remote controller that helps you put the camera in direct positions. This means that thanks to the camera 180-degree views that you can reach using the gimbal, you can set different presets for different chairs and then execute them with a remote click. The remote wasn't included in my package, which means I cannot review it. However, the presets work really well from the computer, and you could trigger it there if you don't want to buy the remote itself. But it's definitely something to consider if you want relatively inexpensive solution for conferencing calls, especially that, like I said, the audio is pretty decent. So moving forward, you will definitely see OBSBOT Tiny featuring in my live streams because, well, it's the easiest way to keep my face in a shot while I'm doing something on a different camera, so I could focus on that instead of checking if my mug sits in the center of the frame. So thanks so much to OBSBOT Tiny for sending me this so I could take a closer look, and if you're interested, obviously links they're gonna be in the description of this video. Let me know what you think, guys. And if you're looking for something cooler with 4K and 60 frames per second, then perhaps OBSBOT has something for you, which is called the tail, providing you can swallow the price tag. So guys, thanks so much for watching, and you know I do not have a posting schedule, so if you want to see more content from myself, you know how YouTube works, I'm not going to explain you all that, many other channels did that for me. What I'm going to say is to pick the social media of your choice and follow me there so you could interact with me and comment on any project mid-stage creation, and perhaps suggest something cool that should feature on the channel itself. Alright, take care. Bye.